Well, and now some important breaking news related to COVID. Senior government sources have told Sky News that the Prime Minister is minded to move to Plan B as early as this week in the face of the Omicron variant, and that Mr Johnson is worried that if he doesn't make the move now, he'll regret it in a month's time. Well, with me is our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates. Sam, let's talk about that news first of all. What does moving to Plan B mean?
Well, there are two key components of Plan B. One is to encourage people to go back to working from home, and the other, which also looks like it could be introduced as a form of vaccine passports. In other words, having to prove that you've had 2 jabs in order to enter bigger venues indoors and outdoors. And this all flows from a cabinet discussion yesterday where Chris Whitty appeared, Chief Medical Officer, was clearly very worried about making clear to cabinet ministers he was very worried about what he was seeing in the data. And there was a discussion with figures like Michael Gove, the Levelling Up Secretary, suggesting that government needed to do something, government needed to be seen to be doing something. That, of course, taking place before the events later in the day unfolded, vis-à-vis the party with the rule breaking later in the day.
And we're told the Prime Minister told that he would regret it if he didn't move now in a month's time. That's because latest information on the rate of spread of the Omicron variant is pretty alarming.
That's right. The transmission of the Omicron variant of coronavirus does seem to be higher than previous variants of coronavirus. That means it can spread through the community quite quickly. Now, ministers, scientists are hoping that the wall of vaccine protection that's been built up over the last few months, particularly with the booster, will mean that when people get coronavirus, if they get this variant, it's not particularly serious. But there are maybe in the region of 5 million people unvaccinated. 89% of people have had the first jab, which leaves 11% that haven't. That's still potentially quite a lot of people completely unprotected, and therefore, if it passes quickly through the community, quite a lot of people ending up in hospital. That's what ministers want to seek to head off. Protecting the NHS is always the first political priority, and that's why Boris Johnson is potentially moving this week. It was only Friday that senior government figures were saying it would be a couple of weeks, maybe the 18th, before any decisions were made. It looks as if the scientists are now saying we can't wait that long.
Of course, all of that is going to affect this Christmas and may divert attention from what appears to be now a pretty serious crisis of credibility for the government over this so-called party last Christmas.
I think whatever the government announced in terms of working from home measures, vaccine passports, it doesn't allow them to escape the political heat that has been generated overnight with that footage that you saw a few minutes ago of government aides, Downing Street aides, laughing about an apparent party that took place last year. Now, what do we understand that happened on December the 18th inside Downing Street last year? Well, we understand that there were maybe 3 dozen aides from different bits of Downing Street gathering together at an event, some of whom
at a planned event, it appears.
Yes, it appears that some people came in from home especially for this event. So it wasn't just people having drinks at the end of the day. It was something a bit more than that. There were party games and the like. Now, for the last 7 days, ever since the Daily Mirror broke this story, Downing Street have said no rules have been broken. And then on some occasions, they've said no party was held. You can have an argument about what the definition of a party is, but at the bottom line is people watch that footage of Downing Street aides joking about an event that they seem to know would be against those Tier 3 rules that were introduced just 2 days before in London, and you get the very strong impression that there was an event that they know shouldn't have taken place. Now, the response from Conservative MPs is furious. Listen to Tracy Crouch, she's the Chatham MP. I'm not even going to begin to justify or defend the party in Downing Street. We all deserve a fulsome explanation and apology, and swiftly. We'll take Anne-Marie Morris. It's not on, and at the very least, they should admit their blatant error and apologise for breaking the rules they imposed on society. Talking to cabinet ministers, there is concern about this, suggestions that heads should roll, the heads of whoever was pushing Boris Johnson to essentially endorse a strategy that didn't involve coming clean over what happened just over a year ago, almost a year ago.
As far as the Prime Minister himself is concerned, we have heard some calls from some opposition for him to resign. But we know, do we, A, he wasn't at the party, and B, he may not have known it took place.
Ian Blackford, the SNP leader in Westminster, last night called for Boris Johnson to resign. That's the first time he's actually done that. Boris Johnson, we believe, was not at this event, largely civil servants. Some political advisors, we think, were there too. But the one fact that cabinet ministers have repeatedly felt confident enough to say on the airwaves, and Downing Street have said behind the scenes, was that the Prime Minister wasn't there, although, of course, Downing Street denied that there was any kind of rule-breaking event at all. Interesting listening to Liz Truss a few moments ago. She was completely unwilling to say that she believed the Downing Street account. She always just said, well, somebody in Downing Street says it isn't true, you'll just have to listen to them. That's what cabinet ministers do when they're not quite sure who to believe.
Can't, though, have pleased her very much that there she was giving her first foreign policy speech at Britain's foreign policy think tank. First question from a senior foreign policy diplomatic journalist about this.
It's never pleasant when a cabinet minister gets diverted from their agenda because of a scandal, particularly in Number 10. You have to tread carefully. But at the same time, Liz Truss is one of the more combative ministers, and she's one of those people who might line up to replace Boris Johnson should he one day step down. So who knows? Maybe she relishes every moment in the limelight.